Welcome to Feminine Roadmap Podcast. I'm your host, Gina-R-Farrar. Each week, I bring you an inspiring conversation to help you navigate the challenges and changes of midlife so that you can not only survive, but thrive in your second half. Hello, Feminine Roadmappers. It is Gina here, and today we are going to be talking about how you, one woman, can change the world. My guest, ronne-rock, believes you are handcrafted by God for a life that is rich and vibrant and filled with stories. She sees the redemptive destinations in people's lives, and she desires to help women live out the days they've been given with purpose. My guest, ronne-rock, is a storyteller, a conversationalist, and a long road walker. She's the author of One Woman Can Change the World. She is a woman who's on a mission to bring real hope for purpose-weary warriors. Ronnie, thank you so much for saying yes to me today.
I am honored to be here. Thank you, Gina. It is great to be here. I wish that we were together in the same room, clinking a coffee cup.
Yes.
But, voice to voice works just fine too.
I'm so grateful for technology so I can see your beautiful face and your smile and that warmth. So I am so excited. I have to give a little backstory. So somewhere along the way, I found you on Instagram, followed you. You know how it is. It's like time flies. I don't remember how I found you. I've been watching your stories and just kind of being like a fly on the wall of your social media life. And I was thinking when you were putting out a book, which will come up in our conversation, which is launching tomorrow. So excited. I had a slot right before your book launch, and I'm like, I should ask her to be on my show. I just reached out to you. And you were like, sure. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So Ronnie is someone that I have been casually connected to on Instagram, but now we finally get to really, really connect. And so Ronnie, why don't you share with the audience what it is that brought you to this mission and message? How is it that you are on this path that you're on? And tell us what that path is.
Sure. Well, I will. I'm gonna put it out there first because it's very important. I am 60 years old, and
woohoo!
I know it is cool. I hope that everyone who listens, every person who listens, will remember that age is not a terrifying thing. And I am saying that as a woman who is an orphan, because both of my parents passed away in their 60s. From my father, it was from alcoholism and drug addiction. My mom was from cancer. And so the fear can creep in pretty quickly that for some reason this is the end of my life. But that is not the case, and I know it. And so if you don't get anything else from our conversation, remember that your life, every single decade of your life, is purposeful, that God is an additive God. He builds your storyline over time. I tell young women, I'm like, oh, just wait. Your playlist gets longer and it gets richer. Your soundtrack of your life gets better. You will definitely become more broken, but you're also going to become more graceful. Age is a glorious thing, and we don't celebrate it enough here in the United States. I do get to travel around the world, and I do get to travel to cultures where age is revered. And so I'm trying to, in my own little way, elevate age as a place of reverence again in the United States. So I'm 60. And I had a very successful career in marketing. I did television marketing, corporate marketing, worked for a global entertainment retailer, had everything going for me, felt this nudge, and this was in my 40s, felt this nudge to step away from the corporate side and move into the ministry side. I adore Jesus, and the idea of doing things that are truly transformative in lives is important to me. And while I was in marketing on the corporate side, I had a lot of opportunity to do cause marketing, where we would go out and refurb a park or build a house. And so watching that transformation just fired me up. So the opportunity to then move into the ministry side or the nonprofit side, take all of my expertise in marketing and move it over, that was so exciting. So I did that at the age of 48 and moved to the ministry side, moved into what I thought was my dream job of marketing, but marketing on the nonprofit world. And my job lasted 18 months. My dream job lasted 18 months. And then they downsized and I was let go. And it shattered me. It did. I was depressed for months. I really thought that moving from the corporate side to the nonprofit side, that titles wouldn't matter anymore. I was doing work for God and all the things. So I wouldn't be impacted by that, but it really crushed me and helped me, though. I look back and I'm thankful for that. I'm so thankful I got laid off. I'm so thankful my life got disrupted and derailed, because it forced me to look in the mirror and say, wait a second, you have placed value based on title and a paycheck and a position and what culture says that you are as far as value goes, but there has to be more. So I started doing just some freelance writing. I now do work for another global nonprofit. It focuses on orphan care, because that is one thing that did emerge from my stint in that ministry, is I found out just had an incredible passion for the vulnerable. And so I was able to go to work for another nonprofit. I worked for a church in the midst of all that. So was able to do things, again, that fed my marketing niche as the Lord was building this passion. And in working in orphan care, I got to know women around the world, women that were very different than the women that I've met here in the US, and women who had values that were not the same as what I had been told the values of leadership were in the US for a woman. I had been told that women had to have a specific voice and a specific emotional tenor. I had been told that the only way to make an impact in the world is to have a platform and to grow an audience and all of those things. And these women taught me that it had nothing to do really with the external trappings. It had everything to do with what I actually saw when I looked in a mirror, what I saw in my design by God Himself. And so these women started teaching me about our strength and courage, the way we are shaped as women to influence and impact others. They taught me about a patience and a resolve that I had not known before. They taught me about the importance of simplicity, of not looking at every opportunity as a way, as the means to capitalizing to make something more large, but to just pouring into a moment that was given to me, and then allowing God to reveal His growth plan for that. And so that's how it all happened in my life. And here I am again at 60, publishing my first traditionally published book. And that is
amazing.
That is also in a world that really lauds youth and lauds slaying the day and those kind of things. I'm slaying, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if I want to slay days anymore. I just want to live days. But that was the road that got me to this book, was me being honestly derailed personally, and derailed from a career standpoint, derailed from what I thought value was.
Wow. Isn't that amazing how, in retrospect, you can really see God's fingerprints, His nudges when maybe He's been nudging and we weren't listening? Then there comes those moments of shift. and we get to choose what to do with those shifts. But I do love the fact that that shift happened for you at a pivotal time when we as women struggle with who we are and where we fit in the world, right?
Oh, trust me, it started actually when I made the move from the corporate world to the ministry side. I could hear that enemy voice in my head saying, you're derailing. You're over. Might as well hang it up. It's over. No one will ever want you anymore. You just hear the hiss, right? Like it was a serpent back in the day. That hiss from the serpent hasn't changed a bit. So when I got that and had to walk through that, then when I got laid off, I did not get fired. I got laid off, but you would have thought that I had been brought into a firing squad. The way it impacted my self-esteem, the way I viewed my worth. And it was a wake-up call for me of just how little I actually thought of myself in light of a creator who in Genesis 1, first chapter, first book, says that he created humanity, man and woman, looked and said, wow, this is really good. Right? He created an earth. He created a universe capable of sustaining our lives. Nothing was done by accident. Even the way he designed the earth and how he laid out that creation process was all to get everything set up for his joy, the delight of his heart, the apple of his eye. And that's us. And far too often as a woman, I had started my view of womanhood in about halfway through Genesis 2. That, it's a woman and she was made to kind of come alongside a dude. And then clearly she had no self-control. And so she made a stupid decision. And then she and her man pointed fingers and blame cast each other. And the rest of the story is that we struggle. So that was the mindset that I had about a woman, that we were kind of a pain. We were second ran, maybe afterthoughts. And no matter what, nothing would really go well. Just because I didn't realize how horrible my view was of womanhood and how that was actually impacting me to really see myself. And that's why I felt like I had to just struggle so much, right? I have to prove myself. I have to let go of femininity. I have to do all these things in order to be considered valuable, worthy, smart, strong. I had someone that even said, you got to get rid of the accent because the fact that you're originally from Oklahoma and you live in Texas and you got to kill the accent or everybody's going to think you're dumb. I'm like, okay, I have to get rid of the accent. I cannot be an emotional person. So I had all of these things trying to prove that I had worth when God laid it out from the beginning that I had worth. I've always had worth.
Isn't that one of those profound moments of awe when you realize that there's nothing you can do to be more valuable than you already are? Mm-hmm. Like that value is inherent in us as created in the image of God. We are valuable. We are precious in his sight. So when we think about this idea of purpose, obviously I totally understand your view of purpose. I agree 100% with you on that. So how did that become your platform? You got passionate about it because of your own journey, because of your own understanding that you didn't see your value and then coming to understand your value? How did you get to that place where you were like, okay, we are going to be talking about how purposeful life can be?
It really, I think a lot of things are born out of our own story. Our own stories of pain, lament, and a crack that we approach right on the road, a gap that we see that our hearts long to fill, something in our own lives that shatters a preconceived idea of what we think. So for me to say that inspiration came from, it was like, oh, it was a great book I read and it changed my life. It really was the Lord working in me. It was me sitting down one day and saying, wait, I know all these women, but something has changed in me over time. And it was not an aha moment. The one day I wake up and I go, ta-da, I'm enlightened. No. In fact, if anybody tells you they're super enlightened, man, run, because they're still learning. We're all still learning. But it was me looking back the same way the Lord in the Old Testament reminded Joshua to build stones so he could look back, right? Called them Ebenezer's. They were markers of time that he could look back and see, wow, something has changed. And it was that. It was looking back and saying, you know what? I don't see myself the same way as I used to. And it is because of the women that I had been around. They've taught me, and I haven't even realized it. It's not like they sat down in a room and said, here's 3 easy steps. In fact, the book, if you buy the book expecting to have a really nice outline and 3 alliterated quick steps to transformation, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because the book is about a journey, and it's really about your journey. It is a conversation starter for you to then have that conversation with the Lord. Look around at your own life. It was me seeing what had happened to me, and then it was other folks saying, you know, I've noticed something about you. I've noticed when we have conversations, you direct me this way. You always make me see that there is greater hope down the road. So it was not an intentional thing. I would say it's probably like most of the women in the book. Not one of the women in the book sat down as a child and said, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to have a ministry for families living with HIV. You know, when I grow up, I'm going to adopt 7 girls. These were all bit by bit by bit transformations that happen in people's lives, which I think that that's the reality, right? And the reason why I say about bringing real hope for purpose-weary warriors is because so often, and this is for men too, even though I speak primarily to women, so often we really think that there is the one thing that we are supposed to do, right? There are, oh my gosh, thousands of books written on finding your one purpose, finding the one thing, letting go of all other things, that we get so caught up in trying to figure out our purpose that we get exhausted, and we go to conferences and we read books and we do assessments. And I'm an assessment junkie, so I know how many assessments you can do to try to figure out who you are. But we try so hard to find this purpose in our life that somehow it's about a doing. If we could just find a doing that made us feel whole, then that must be our purpose. Mm-hmm. Not realizing that our purpose in life, or God's purpose for us in our life, is us. It's us loving Him and living our days out well. He doesn't say, Gina, you know what? Your one purpose in this life is to be a podcast host. There you go, woman. You finally nailed it. Good luck to you, right? No, what He did is He gave you gifts and talents, a personality, emotions, experiences that I promise you, you live out in your day-to-day. And then a piece of those also come out as you are ministering to women on this podcast. But those qualities and talents and things, they're all in there anyway. And they leak out in the way we care for our families. They leak out in the way we respond to a problem. So His purpose is not the one thing, the one spouse, the one job, the book, those things. His purpose is us. He created us because He actually delights in us. He actually wants to spend some time with us. And then He wants us to spend time with others. And however that manifests itself in a conversation, in a long road walk, I think that we would all be surprised at how many gems we would find and discover about our purpose by just looking at our own stories.
Yeah.
And so But we get so weary because we keep thinking there has to be the thing. And the whole time he's like, no, baby, you're the thing. Do you understand? It's you. It is the way you're shaped. It's the way your eyes see. It's the way you hear. It's the way you feel. It's things that some folks may feel aren't valuable at all because you go, well, anybody can do this. No, honey, you're doing it. In a way, I go, in my head, I guess God speaks like a Southern grandma. I don't know. He's like, sweetie, do you see this great talent? It's yours to use. It's not a talent that I just scattered to a million people. I handpicked and gave it to you.
You mentioned seasons, and there's two things I wanted to bring up. The seasons of life, leaning into where the timeline of life has taken us, who we've become during that time, the process of the seasons. The word process keeps coming up. And then the other thing that you mentioned was, personality and emotions. I saw that you're an Enneagram 4.
4-wing 3.
I'm an 8-wing.
Type 479. Again, assessment junkie.
Me too. I'm an Enneagram 8-wing 7. So there's a lot. I'm a lot. And there have been times when there's been that you're too much. Mm-hmm. I've had important people say, you talk too much. When are you going to calm down? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, there's something to, you talked about this. God created you with a personality and with emotions. And I think as women, we get distracted trying to fit into a mold that we are not meant to be in. I think we can all improve, maybe soften some edges, certain personalities.
Always, right? We are, at the risk of sounding colloquial, we are diamonds in the rough. We are being refined, which is beautiful. And it talks about in scripture that we are being refined. We are clay that is being formed and shaped into an exquisite vase. We are a story with the promise that God is the author and he is the finisher of that story. And what he started, he will complete.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking is like, as women self-criticize like you did, as those hissing voices and mean girls in our head start to talk to us, stepping back and really hearing what you're saying, which is, no, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah, there's always something we can do to be a better version of that, but we're not trying to be a different version of that. And I think that's the neat part of your story is leaning into how did God create you and work with those beautiful gifts and strengths that you have instead of looking at someone else and wishing you were that. Especially in this season of life when we get the opportunity to really be okay with our journey and who we are. And
there is a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think in the faith community, we add additional pressure to it. We look at the Proverbs 31 woman, we look at 22 verses of a whole chapter and call it done, and then hold it up that the woman, in order to be a great woman, you have to be married with children, an entrepreneur. You have to weave your own sheets, churn your own butter, negotiate your deal at Trader Joe's, right? So by the time it's over, it can be the most condemning set of scriptures for most women. Because what it tells then single women is, oh, wait, when you get married, it's all going to be okay. It tells women who want children but can't bear children, oh, only if you had kids would your life be okay. It tells women who want to stay at home and that to become, that be where their heart's passion is caring for their home. It tells them you're not doing enough because you're not building a cottage industry. It tells women who love an external career, right? Or need to work outside of the home, whether or not it's by choice or by financial, that, because you're not at home, you're not enough. So those feelings of condemnation, they're barbs when you actually look at Proverbs 31 and you go, no, it was actually written by a king, the words that his mama taught him about leadership. It was not, I don't think it was ever supposed to be his how-to list on what to look for in the perfect wife.
Mm-hmm. So as women, I think we do have those mental checklists.
Mm-hmm.
If someone out there is not a believer and doesn't know, I bet they do know about the Proverbs 31 woman. But
You know what? It's out there on every Mother's Day card. It
it's
feels like.
totally out there. But that's one of those things that being purposeful, Ronnie, that we do hold ourselves to standards and ideas that are almost untouchable, unreachable, unreasonable sometimes. And how do we lean into the beauty of ourselves? Not being like self-centered, obviously, but just really leaning into who we are. How do you help women just really accept themselves? Because I think that is where a lot of women get caught up. Because they're never enough, they can't accept where they are. And I don't know that we can do anything until we've really sat with ourselves and said, you know what? I see you. I feel you. I understand you. And you and me and me, we're going to do this together instead of having that internal enemy. It's hard to accomplish your purpose, right? When you're like your own worst enemy. So,
and I say that in the book, I say our biggest enemy is us as women. Our biggest enemy is us. We compare to each other. We compare to culture, which then we either condemn ourselves or we condemn someone else. But it is a losing proposition, because just when we think, if we're constantly comparing, and there's good comparison out there. I promise you, there are good ways to compare, but there's so much negative about comparing ourselves to others. If I looked and said, man, if I just had beautiful red hair like Gina, then everything would be perfect. Or she's got curls and I've got straight hair. Or she's younger and I'm older. Or, oh, she lives this place, but I live here. She is free and easy. I'm this. We go back and forth and we build boxes, honestly, small prisons for ourselves and for others. And is there a true formula? I don't know. If there is, I'm sure there are great folks out there that have entire courses on self-discovery. What I have learned is that at the end of the day, it isn't about me finding my truth or discovering my truth, because trust me, my truth will change day to day and it changes season to season. What I have to trust is God's truth of what he says and who he says that I am. And so when I hold that up and I start to ask questions of myself and I gather some wise people who love me well and are willing to be honest with me, and I ask them to help me grow, then I do look and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to ask myself about my personality. What sets me ablaze? What lights me up? Are there certain things that I love to do that I get energy when I do? Are there things that I love to do, or things that I know how to do, but I get weary? It just kind of sucks the lifeblood out of me. Are there certain types of folks, not friends, not names, but kinds of people that when I'm around them, I get jazzed? Are there dreams that I've had even from the time I was a little kid that just kind of linger in there? Are there certain scriptures that when I read them, I feel the joy start to kind of erupt in my heart? What are my personality traits? What emotions do I have? And that's a tough one, because with women, a lot of times we are ascribed as being too emotional. But man, there is a woman that is in my book that I would love for everybody to meet. Her name is Lisa. And in fact, I have an interview with her that's on my author page. I encourage you, because we're going to talk about the voice of our emotions. She taught me that it's not just my physical voice, right? It's not just using my physical voice, but it is allowing the way I am wired as a woman, because neurologically, we are wired differently. Neurologically, we have feelings. Our feelings and facts connect. Sometimes not to our best, but when used rightly, our feelings and facts connect. And so to use empathy, to use grief, to feel joy, and allow that to become a part of our voice, as opposed to saying, oh, I need to not show grief as I'm sharing this story, or Anger must be bad, so I'm going to put that away. Empathy might be considered weak, so I'm going to put that away. But seeing that even emotion is a beautiful quality that has been woven into our design. And that God is an emotional God. He didn't create something he doesn't have. He's a father, so his DNA is in us. So even emotion and personality, we shouldn't discount any of those things as part of our design.
I'm thinking of a prism. When light hits a prism, you don't see all the colors when you look at the prism. The light has to shine through it to unlock that magical, color, right? Yeah. You look at a piece of glass or a beveled window and you don't see the color. But when the light hits it, the way that they mesh, the prism brings out the colors in the light. So the light and the prism need each other. And I feel like that's us as humans, but as women, as the light shines through us, our color, right? That marriage of that intersection of our emotions and who we are as a person, that's our unique prism. And if we allow them to cross, like you're talking about, don't separate ourselves out like that. Yeah. Oh, I can't be this. I need to be this. I think there is a balance where we recognize maybe this piece of us is causing us a little bit of suffering because we are not being mindful, maybe, or we're being too sensitive. But that doesn't mean that we stop being sensitive. We just learned to dance with the growth and the process, like you said earlier, the word process and the season. But we're like prisms. We need to allow that light in. We need to allow it to shine the way it shines and follow that instead of that, like you said, harsh comparison or that harsh criticism of ourselves. Really begin to see, I'm hearing you say, really look at what uniqueness do we offer? And there's a reason for that. See, you and I are on the same page, and this is the thing, we've not known each other. But I always look at us, it's like a puzzle. Every person is uniquely designed. And if we are walking in our purpose and we're stepping up and doing the scary things or the hard things, and we're pushing ourselves through the fear and we're showing up, even as we grow, we link together in this world, and it makes the world more complete when we walk in some form of purpose. Like you said, it's not the one purpose, because the season of my life is totally different than it was 20 years ago. I might be growing. I'm essentially the same, but my season of life has changed. And that's what gets me excited about your message in your own life about, I hit 50 and everything blew up and I thought my life was over. And it's like, but no, it was like, that was the pivot that brought this season. Look at all the beauty and the impact and the passion that you have. You would have been on a totally different path. So let's talk about the idea that, how do we take these things that come into our life and see how they fit into purpose instead of seeing them as like the end of something or the end all be all of something?
This may sound so basic, or it may sound very, patronizing, but I'm going to go to words that a sweet woman who is in the book, she is known only now by an affectionate name of Auntie. And if you were to ask Auntie anything, she lives in the Himalayas. She is in her mid-70s. She has walked a lot of road. And her story has definitely ebbed and flowed over time. But yet you see her personality and emotion and everything fit into it as she continues to be refined. And as opportunity has presented itself, and she has stepped into it. Sometimes stepped into opportunity that she's like, okay, I stepped in, and has had to make some adjustments, because this is not also about trying to live a spit-polished life. This is about permission to make mistakes too, because we still are, right? We are beautifully and incredibly flawed humans that are considered the delight of God. And it blows my mind how he can see us in our complete fallenness and in the moments where we are so self-centered and we are so pouty and we are so demanding, and yet can see us dressed in white as the bride. Blows me away. And that's why he's got it. I'm not. I'm glad. But Auntie, if you were to ask her that question of like, well, how do you know? What do you do with the next step? All of those things, her simple words would be, you trust Jesus. You just trust Jesus. You take the next step and you trust. Ina, who is in the book and lives in Honduras, would tell you, you put your toe in the water. You just put your toe in the water and you see if God starts to part the water. You just put it in there. And you see if he starts to part the water. And if he parts the water, you take the one step and you stick another toe in. And that's how you move. You just sticking toes in. That's all. You don't know. None of these women had it all figured out before they got the first start. None of them had a 10-year plan all mapped out before they took the first step. They saw the day as it presented. They prayed, and then as opportunities or that divine nudge or whatever, and then they explored it. They stuck the toe in the water. My sweetest friend, Flo, who is in a real special section in the book because it's also a section where our stories intersect. She actually lives here in my town. But I love her story. Her statement, she'll say, is like, oh, Ronnie, it's just common. We're just common folk doing stuff and trusting that God is going to work through it. Not we are common folk building out a huge plan, vetting it with a board of advisors, testing it out, and telling God that we're going to let him know if it works for us. It is just taking the step, watching him do what he does, taking the next step. And she says, if I'm going to trust God with my life, it seems like I would want to trust him with where my life is right now. And so often we discount our lives right now because we think that in order for them to be significant, we have to get to another place. Instead of saying, okay, you know what, Lord, I'm going to start with where my life is right now. And I want to sit with you, and I'm going to take stock of my life right now, and not take stock of it I'm going to figure out everything that's wrong about it because I have an ideal of what I think a perfect life should be. But I'm going to take stock right now to see where I see you moving and what you've taught me so far in my life. And what is it about my personality that shines? And what is it about the way I'm crafted, even my physical body? What is it about the way I'm crafted that brings glory to you? And not glory because of an ideal, again, that I have in my own head of what I think a perfect woman should be, but what Scripture tells me about who I am as the beloved, as the person greatly loved by you.
What an incredible point you made. It's not where our life has been or where we think it's going, but start where your life is right now. There's such an accepting, a yielding that's so important because we've been busy. So busy.
Mm-hmm.
We hit midlife running usually 150 miles an hour, which is why I started the podcast, because I figured I can't be the only one to figure this thing out. But it's like finding that quiet space of acceptance and yielding and just, who am I now?
Yeah.
What has contributed to who I am now?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what do I like about myself? And what are those things I still want to polish up a little bit?
Yeah.
And they do kind of end up being markers that are pointing in a direction. Pay attention to what you say over and over.
Yeah.
Like, what are the themes in your life that you tend to be attracted to?
Mm-hmm.
But we find ourselves speaking our truth and not hearing it because we say it so much. And so it seems small or it seems unimportant, right? When it's actually possibly a little flag going, this is your heart.
Oh, I've had conversations with friends before where we have to catch ourselves because there's two things. Again, I'm going to say that they're in faith world, but I also have seen them they map out, the language may be different in folks who don't necessarily have the same faith perspective. But there's two things that seem to fit. Number one, if it is a natural gift or talent that I have, then God certainly couldn't use it because It says in scripture that he is made, that his strength is revealed in my weakness. So if it is a natural gift that I have, then clearly God would not use it for ministry. He would only use something that I suck at.
That's that mindset that's not correct.
Right? It is a horrible mindset. And you're like, first of all, that scripture didn't say anything. It wasn't even linked to your talents. But we have those, but we have this idea sometimes that if it is something that comes naturally to me, then in order for it to be significant, that would clearly not be significant because it's kind of easy. So we discount the things the way we were designed by God in the first place, thinking that the only thing that, like for me, I am a natural storyteller. I do love to write. Well, could God actually use then my writing? No, you know what? Because I'm naturally gifted at it. The only way that he would ever use me is if I become a triple threat on Broadway. Probably not. We twist scripture around to say, in order for God to be strong, I have to be weak. And in order for me to be weak, it has to be something I'm not great at or something that I'm not naturally gifted at. The other thing that we have a tendency to say, and a friend and I, we catch each other a lot is, well, you know what? If God wants you to do it, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be painful.
It's that suffering.
He's going to make you give up everything that you like. He's going to make you walk hard roads. So you have this idea almost of a bully God, that the only way for anything to be beautiful in his eyes, and I'm not talking about us yielding selfishness, self-righteousness, those things that say, hi, I'm little God and I know what I'm doing and thank you very much. It's not about yielding those things. It is this mindset that God couldn't actually really want something that I delight in or that would make me smile, because if I delight in it, if it makes me smile, if it's something that brings me joy, then it must be self-centered. So it's going to have to hurt. It's going to have to hurt. And so what we do is that we then make God, we put him in such a small box that we say, gifts and talents that I have can't be used by God fully in ministry because they're natural gifts and talents. And if it's natural, then it can't be good. Mm-hmm. And then this journey that I'm walking on, if there's anything that's good or there's a delight of my heart, well, my heart's just evil and twisted anyway. So anything that I would think that I would desire couldn't be of God. When the whole thing, it says he gives you the desires of your heart. He actually places them in your heart. He lays out ministry for you and then compels you and invites you into it. Those are not horrible things to consider. And yeah, you're being refined through it all. And yeah, you're going to stuff, rough edges, sin, those things. We'll whittle those things away. But our view of God is some sort of a bully club God that is mildly annoyed with us and is just waiting for us to get our act together is a horrible thing that is not found in Scripture. But yet I think we have a tendency to impose it upon ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's a lie that keeps us bound,
mm-hmm.
and it keeps us away from that vibrant life, that rich life. Mm-hmm. It's like we're living in poverty surrounded by gold.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know there's a lot talking about scarcity mindset, and of course, this entire season of 2020 has taught us a lot about scarcity. It's taught us a lot about what we can't control. It has revealed a lot to us in scarcity, especially globally, with what a pandemic can do when folks physically actually can't even get to a place of employment, those kind of things. But there is a difference between scarcity that can be a scarcity of food or water that can be addressed in those ways. And then there's that mental scarcity that we have in our own mind that says, I'm never going to be enough because I'm either going to be too young, too old, not well educated enough, living in the wrong part of town. My skin's not the right shade. My personality has always been off. My brain is broken. We throw all of those things out and list those as reasons why God really couldn't use us effectively, or that he looks at us and says, damaged goods. Gosh, if you just would get your act together. And then we lay out like his purpose and plan and treat it like it is the tiniest dot on a bullseye. And unless we hit it with laser accuracy, we are forever going to live in a world of almost but not quite.
And that's the lie that keeps us small, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we tell the lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, there's such freedom in accepting who we are, where we've been, and the journey that we've taken. And one of the redemptive things that I like to focus on is no matter what has happened in the past, your history is not your destiny. It definitely shapes who you are and how you view things, but it's not a sentence. Let's say we maybe haven't done or been the person that we want to be for whatever reason. That's the beauty of still being alive, isn't it?
As long as you got breath, right? As long as you got breath, then you are still working toward, again, a redemptive destination. And that's the glory. I tell people over and over again, I know that you love to ask what things would you encourage? And I have plenty of them. I'll do a spoiler early on, is that hope does not disappoint. It will not disappoint. God's hope, you can take it to the bank. Just hands open, palms up. Here it is, Lord. Here's my day. Here's everything about me. I want to walk. I know I'm going to stumble. It's going to be okay. I'm not alone. Nobody will ever snatch me out of your hand. You are the author. You are the finisher of this story, which is my story. I am trusting you with it. And I know that your hope does not disappoint. Even when life disappoints, your hope does not disappoint.
I love the idea, and this is the thing that sustains me, is the sovereignty of God, that I am not the author of my story. I may be co-authoring it, meaning that I'm living what I believe I'm supposed to be doing. But I love that God has the whole world in his hands. During this pandemic, during all of these things, I can rest because there's something greater than me. I don't have to have it all figured out. And I think that's one of the things about purpose that makes it hard to pinpoint, is we don't get to figure it all out.
Mm-hmm. Goodness, because you know what? Self-fulfilling prophecy would kick in and we would try to adjust it. I love my grandson is coding now. He is 9 years old. He loves computers and he loves to code. He has a subscription thing called Bitsbox. And so the past 2 days, he has called Papa because he has had problems with coding. And both of those problems with coding have been because he's looked at the code and gone, you know what? I have an idea. And Papa will say, honey, let's look at that line. Where did you come up with that section? He'll go, well, I know that it said this. The code said, I just need, if I type this in, then it will work. But I thought, wait a second. I know some code from this other one. I'm going to add it. And Brad would say, I think that's cool. I love that you're so creative, but why don't you take that extra code out and watch what works? And then you can piece in all of those other creative things to watch how it works better. But let's first start with the basics instead of like, I know what's written. I know what I know, but I think I know better. That creativity is great. It's going to serve a purpose. But let's first start with the basics. And I love that because so often in my life, I'm the same way. I'll be like, I know how you're supposed to treat people. However, I got this idea. I know, and it's not really about a physical plan. It is attitudinally, right? I try to trump. I go, you know what? I know what's right, but I'm going to try it this way instead. And I'm like, it's okay for me to be super creative. But when I try to one up and grab the pen and go, look, I know you've got this amazing story for me, but let me show you. I'm going to rewrite a chapter. In fact, I'm going to create my own language, And he's like, oh, darling, Well, I love the creativity. Now let's talk about it.
You put it in the context, right? And one of the things, Ronnie, that I think women may be thinking through is, but I'm not there yet. It doesn't look like I'm ever going to get there.
Yeah.
That feeling of stuckness or that feeling of not enoughness.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I'm in a sandwich between, having raised my kids and done all of that.
Yeah.
And then I start this thing that I think I'm supposed to do. And then the need to take care of two moms comes in.
Yeah.
So I didn't even get the window that I thought I
Yeah.
would get
Yeah.
to do the thing I want to do without having to care for
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah.
And I think that can help give that idea that I'm on the wrong path or I'm never going to get that story. Let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. If somebody feels stuck, trusting those not quite so lovely places or those not, it just feels like you're spinning your wheels or you're stuck in the mud just in general in life. For that woman who really feels like there is no story for me, nothing's ever going to change.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel that way, but I can hear voices, out there going, yeah, that's good for you, but that's not how my life goes. What words of encouragement would you give that woman?
My biggest encouragement that I could provide to any woman, because I'll tell you, I'm still living it. I haven't arrived. I have yet to meet anybody who is, I guess, arrived, right? We are all working through it. We all have the days where that confidence, that quiet confidence rises in us and we move forward. And then we have the days where we're weary or there's just been a lot of noise and stuff. And then it's very easy for us to start to question because it gets noisy and it's hard to even hear our own thoughts, much less to hear that still calm voice of God that says, I've got you, trust me, we're walking. What I would encourage, though, for women who feel like I'm stuck or I'll never have enough, or even the sandwich generation, it's very easy for us to think, oh, I've got a season and that season can only do the one thing. And then I'll step out of that season into the next season. Well, I'll have this window of time to do the thing. And then I'll step into this season to have the window of time to do the thing. I would say take a breath. Don't try to lay out on a calendar what you think a window of time takes. And ask God, will you show me how? Will you show me? Because maybe I'm not supposed to do a single thing a season. Father, is there really a place for me to have a podcast and to care for two aging moms? Is there a reason why this collision is happening right now? Is it happening because I do need to make a choice? Or is it happening because you're actually a both and God who is saying that your podcast is going to help you care for your moms in a way that you never could before, and caring for your moms in a way that you never could before is going to help you be a better minister through a podcast? Who knows? But in the book, I talk about that with a friend who we went through is God really just an either or God? Or is he a both and God? Right? Because if you look at our story, if it is a continual story, that means that he does not waste any of your past on your present. He doesn't say, oh, that past is great, but it doesn't pertain to now. Every part of your past helps your present. And then what your present is right now is going to feed into what your future is. God's not going to squander any of those pieces. I would ask that you just, again, take a breath. Maybe write down, journal, be honest with the Lord, even of how you feel, the struggles that you feel. Ask him to reveal where those struggles are coming from. Is it seated in the fact that you really do need to lay something down because you're just trying to pick too much up? Because you're afraid that if you don't pick it all up? Are those feelings and that tension, is it coming because you just feel that you're not enough? That you need to be reminded again of who you are. And then also to not discount the work that you're doing right now, whatever it is that's going on in your life. Find glory and joy in what we would consider small things. We encourage folks to not be small. We encourage folks to really not try to make themselves through shame and fear to compress, right, what God has done in them. But at the same time, there is glory in seeing that there is beauty in small things. The Lord says, don't despise the days of small things, because you find, and there's an adage, right? You look back and you find out that the small things were the big things all along. But if you are at home and you are caring for kids and you are wondering, is this all there is? Take count of the beauty of the things that you are learning and the lives that you are pouring into and the futures that are being crafted right now because of your care. Remember that what you have and what you're learning, the only other person that you might be sharing it with is a good friend who is struggling, who might be right behind you. She might have an infant and you might have a toddler, but that ministry that you are doing to her is valuable. You may see it as small because it's not in a book or not in an ebook or not in a devotional, or you're not standing in front of a small group or on a stage, but God sees that one life that you're impacting in the same way that he sees the multitudes, or else he would not chase after lambs, the one lamb who is lost. Or else heaven would not erupt when one soul says yes. He sees beauty in small things, and we need to see beauty in small things. We need to see his greatness in small things. We need to see his greatness in seasons that feel convoluted, that don't feel like they have all the pieces together. We just need to, honestly, to take a breath, to remember Psalm 46:10, which was in the midst of a war. It says that nations are raging all around, and God says, calm down. That's my paraphrase. It says, stop, take a breath, watch me, trust me. In the midst of the mayhem, trust me, hold my hand, watch me work.
On that point, we have gotten to the top of our hour. What a fabulous conversation. I want to thank you so much for that perspective. You know, don't despise the small things. I think that's an important point. But as we land this plane, as we get to this point in the conversation where I ask you to share 3 things, if you were able, Ronnie, to sit down face to face with each one of the listeners and have a cup of something wonderful together, what 3 things would you really want them to know, understand, or receive from your heart?
I'd want them to know, because Gina, I want you to know that God delights in the space that you have been given right now, that he is present right now in that space with you, and all he is asking you to do is to fill the space. To not try to measure it, to not try to figure out if the space is big enough. And when I say space, I don't mean physical space. I mean the work of your hands. When you wake up in the morning, when you see what's before you, he's not asking you to determine if it's huge or small or overwhelming or underwhelming or those things. He's just saying, enter to the day, hands open, and fill that space. And fill that space not with all the things you can do, but fill that space with you. Be present. I'm there with you. I, your God, am Emmanuel. God with you, Gina. God with you. And I want you to be present too. I would want women to remember that they really are made in the image and likeness of God, whether or not they believe it. An image and likeness does not necessarily, it's not just about your body shape or those things. It is about personality. It is about emotion. It is about passions in your heart. It is about the things that break your heart and the things that bring joy to you. I would encourage just to sit with a pen and some paper and just write down who you are when seen through that lens. You don't have to share it with the soul. And I would, again, remind you that hope does not disappoint. Even on days that are disappointing, even when you receive news that's disappointing, even when things don't go according to the way that you thought that they should have gone, even in loss, even in struggle, hope does not disappoint. And you have a God who is no different than the God that is written about in Eden, that wants to walk with you in the cool of an afternoon and have a great conversation about your day. Nothing has changed. He is still that God. And he calls you beloved. That means greatly loved. Greatly loved.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ronnie, for being a light to my audience today, for bringing truth, for bringing hope, for bringing encouragement that's so needed in this time when a lot of our hearts are dry. We're in a dry season, some of us, you know. I know for my listeners, they're all over the map in where they are. But as women, I think the one thing that unites us is that remembering that we are precious in his sight. We forget our own sense of value, our own true value. And so thank you for that gentle and lovely reminder, and that kind of giving us a glimpse of a map that can lead us to a place of calm and peace and purpose. So thank you for sharing your message today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, this was delightful. This was so much fun.
I think that this message is for such a time as this. And I'm so excited. And one of the reasons I really felt like it was timely is, you know, your book is coming out tomorrow.
It is.
And I've been such a busy schedule, but how did that window open? Because I think the women that hear this message from you, Ronnie, that this is the time. If you're hearing this right now, this is because it's been appointed for you to hear this message, and not only hear it, but to allow it to take root. Wouldn't you agree?
You know, I pray so. I would be honored if folks would buy my book, not because the book is not about me. The book is, honestly, it is about you. It is about what generations of women, old, young, what we can learn from each other about what it means to truly be a woman of grace, a woman in leadership, a woman who does thrive in the midst of hardship and changing seasons. It is a woman who has quiet confidence in who she is. And so I'd love it if everybody could buy my book. If you can't, that's fine too. If you can't, honestly, send a message.
So how can they get in touch with you and your book, Ronnie?
Sure. Easy thing for you, the listener, is you can go to onewomancanchangetheworld.com. That is an easy way for you to learn more about the book, and then also learn more about me and writing and ministry and those things. There's also links to buy the book there. So it's easy. onewomancanchangetheworld.com. And then you can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook. It's ronne-rock, which is ronne-rock, a little bit different. It's short for Veronica. Had to change it up just a bit. So, but I'm very active on Instagram, and then also have a Facebook page. Love to talk. So if we connect on Instagram, I adore prayer. It's my joy. So you can send a message to me on Instagram with a prayer request that you have, and you can guarantee you I'm going to be holding you close in prayer, because to me that's important, and that is the way that we can hold each other as women, is to pray.
Wonderful. Well, Ronnie, again, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your heart, and for offering that kind of support, because it's so important to know that we're not alone in the world. Yes.
It changes. To know that we are not alone changes the way we view the world.
Yeah.
It really does. It changes. It takes the specter of fear and rightly places it, right?
Yeah.
Because if we don't feel alone.
Yeah. So friends, today I've been speaking with ronne-rock. She's a storyteller, a conversationalist, a long road walker. She's a prayer warrior and the author of One Woman Can Change the World. If you head on over to www.feminineroadmap.com/episode 169, I will have links to Ronnie, her ministry, her book. So if you want a quick link, you can head there. While you're there, please leave your name and email address and join my tribe. I have a gift for you. Friends, when a message comes into our life and we feel that niggling in our spirit, it's time to stop and hold a space for that message. And for those of us who are in that in-between place and we're hearing this message, it's really a walk of faith, trusting that where we are is where we're supposed to be, whether or not we understand, and to learn to separate what we see as valuable away from what the world measures to what God measures. It's so much greater. It's so much deeper. It's so much more impactful. So trust the journey, my friends. Reach out for the support that you need. Maybe get this book and do a book club. Create the support that you need if you don't have it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I trust that you've been blessed. And if that is the case, please share this. Share. Put it on your Instagram, your Facebook. Tell all of your friends. Because I guarantee you, if it meant something to you, it will mean something to someone else. We look forward to talking with you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.